In early 2001, Turkey experienced one of the most serious economic crises in its history, which culminated in a declaration of a sovereign default on its domestic debt. This default was the culmination of years of economic problems and instability that had been building up in the country for several years. In this article, we will examine the main causes, consequences, and measures taken to rebuild Turkey's economy after the default. Prerequisites of the crisis. First, macroeconomic instability. In the late 1990s, Turkey faced high inflation rates that reached 70 to 80% per year. This created an unsustainable economic environment in which the government had to resort to borrowing to finance its deficits. Second, political instability. The political life of the country was plagued by conflicts between different parties, leading to frequent changes in the government. This created uncertainty and mistrust from both citizens and foreign investors. Third, poor financial management. The Turkish government failed to manage finances effectively, which led to a significant increase in public debt. Foreign and domestic loans were used to cover budget deficits, which exacerbated the country's financial dependence. And lastly, crises in the banking sector. In 2000, Turkey experienced a banking crisis caused by an uncontrolled increase in insolvent loans. The bankruptcy of several large banks exacerbated the situation and led to a loss of confidence in the financial system. Declaration of default. In February 2001, the Turkish government declared a default on its domestic debts, which meant that it was unable to fulfill its obligations to creditors. This decision was a consequence of the deteriorating economic situation and pressure from international financial institutions that called for reforms. As a result of the default, the Turkish lira fell rapidly, leading to a sharp increase in the price of imported goods and a further rise in inflation. The default led to a deep economic crisis. In 2001, the country's GDP shrank by 5.3%, and unemployment rose to 10%. Inflation reached 70% per year. The crisis led to a significant deterioration in the standard of living of the population. Many families lost their savings due to the depreciation of the lira, leading to increased poverty and social discontent. The aggravation of the economic situation caused protests and discontent among citizens. This also contributed to the change of government. In 2002, the Justice and Development Party, or AKP, won the elections and promised to implement the necessary reforms. After the default, Turkey received international financial assistance, which was a necessary step for economic recovery. The World Bank and the International Monetary Fund, or IMF, provided loans and financing in exchange for structural reforms. Key measures included: reforms were undertaken in the banking sector to improve the management and supervision of financial institutions. This included the establishment of the Banking Supervision Agency and the introduction of new standards for banks. The government took measures to reduce the budget deficit and increase revenues. Tax and social programs were revised, which allowed optimizing expenditures. The authorities introduced a currency corridor regime that stabilized the lira exchange rate. This was an important step to restore confidence in the national currency. The government also initiated reforms in various sectors of the economy, including the pension system, healthcare system, and privatization of state-owned enterprises. Turkey's default in 2001 was an important lesson for the country. Despite the severe consequences, the crisis also opened the door for significant reforms that allowed Turkey to recover and strengthen its economy. As a result of these reforms, by 2004, Turkey's economy began to grow and inflation rates fell. The country was able to regain the confidence of both domestic and international investors, which laid the foundation for subsequent economic growth. Thus, the 2001 default was a turning point in Turkey's history that demonstrated how crises can be catalysts for necessary change and reform.